So I really thought, right, maybe this is it. I'm not going to do it. But I drove back home, tragically, and then I started sending tapes around again. I ended up getting another job in local news, and then...
Savannah Guthrie, the woman who wakes up America every morning with a smile that seems unshakable, has become one of the most trusted faces in broadcast journalism. At 54, she sits at the helm of NBC's Today Show, a position she has held since 2012, commanding a salary reported at $8 million per year. She has interviewed presidents, covered Olympic Games, and moderated presidential debates. But behind the polished professionalism and the warm demeanor lies a story not glamorous but brutal. A story of devastating personal loss, of dreams nearly shattered by tragedy, of a woman who fought through heartbreak that would have broken most people. What the cameras don't show are the tears shed in the early morning hours, the phone calls that changed everything, and the moments when the brightest smile on television almost dimmed forever. If Savannah Guthrie has ever made you feel informed, inspired, or simply less alone during your morning coffee, hit like as tribute to her resilience. This is the story of a girl from Melbourne, Australia, who crossed oceans, survived unimaginable loss, and built an empire on the ashes of tragedy, only to discover that success could never shield her from the most heartbreaking moments. Life had waiting, December 27, 1971, Melbourne, Australia. A day marked not by celebration but by uncertainty. Savannah Clark Guthrie entered a world her parents were still trying to navigate themselves. Her father, Charles Guthrie, worked in sales and real estate. Her mother, Nancy, was trying to build a stable life far from their American roots. The family had moved to Australia for her father's work, but the dream of stability proved elusive. When Savannah was just 2 years old, her parents made a decision that would reshape her entire childhood. They returned to Tucson, Arizona, packing up their lives and crossing the Pacific Ocean with a toddler in tow. The transition was jarring. The beginning was not glamorous, but marked by constant adaptation. Tucson in the 1970s. Desert heat. Financial strain. Her parents' marriage began showing cracks that would eventually become chasms. Savannah watched her father struggle with business ventures that didn't pan out. She watched her mother work multiple jobs to keep food on the table. By the time she was 16, the inevitable happened. Her parents divorced. The split devastated young Savannah. She threw herself into academics at Amphitheater High School, finding refuge in books and debate team competitions. She was smart. Brilliant even. But brilliance doesn't erase the pain of a fractured home. After high school, Savannah attended the University of Arizona, graduating with a degree in journalism in 1993, but she wasn't done. While her peers were entering the workforce, she was hungry for more. She enrolled at Georgetown University Law School, a decision that would later prove crucial. She graduated with her Juris Doctor in 1999. Passing the Arizona bar that same year, she had 2 degrees, 2 paths, and no clear direction. The young woman who had crossed oceans as a child was about to cross into a career that would make her a household name. But first, she would have to survive years of rejection, obscurity, and the kind of loss that changes everything. 1999, Savannah Guthrie, 27, took her first steps into broadcast journalism at KMIZ-TV in Columbia, Missouri, a small ABC affiliate. She was making approximately $25,000 per year. It was humbling. She had a law degree from Georgetown, yet she was covering local city council meetings and weekend weather. But Savannah was patient. Strategic. Then came 2000. She moved to KVOA-TV in Tucson, Arizona, returning to her college town as an anchor and reporter. Still small market. Still learning. Still earning less than she could have made as a junior. Attorney. 2003 brought her first significant break. Court TV, now True TV, hired her as a legal correspondent. Her law degree finally meant something. She covered the Michael Jackson trial in 2004 and 2005, the Martha Stewart trial, and other high-profile cases. She wasn't just reporting, she was analyzing with the precision of someone who understood the legal intricacies. NBC News noticed. 2007, Savannah, now 35, joined NBC News as a legal analyst and correspondent. Her first major assignment was covering the 2008 presidential campaign. She was on the ground in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. She was in the thick of history. By 2008, she had been promoted to White House correspondent. She was standing in the James's Brady press briefing room, asking questions of Press Secretary Robert Gibbs, covering President Barack Obama. The girl from Tucson was now steps from the Oval Office. 2011 changed everything. NBC needed a co-host for the third hour of Today. They chose Savannah. 6 months later, in June 2012, when Ann Curry departed as co-anchor of the main Today Show, NBC made a decision that would alter the trajectory of morning television. Savannah Guthrie became co-anchor of Today alongside Matt Lauer on July 9, 2012. She was 40 years old. The salary jumped to approximately $7 million annually. The scrutiny intensified exponentially. Every gesture analyzed. Every word dissected. Today was hemorrhaging viewers to Good Morning America. The pressure was crushing, but Savannah steadied the ship. When Matt Lauer was fired in November 2017 amid sexual harassment allegations, Savannah handled the morning broadcast with grace that stunned critics. She addressed the situation directly, emotionally, and then carried on. By 2020, her contract was renewed at $8 million per year. She had conducted interviews with President Donald Trump, President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris. She moderated presidential town halls, success, power, influence, but none of it could prepare her for what was coming. September 2008. Savannah Guthrie, 36, was at the pinnacle of her career trajectory. She had just joined NBC News. Everything was ascending. She was engaged to a man she believed was her future. Then, silence. The engagement ended. Details remained private, but those close to Savannah knew the truth. The relationship had crumbled under the weight of her ambition and his inability to accept that her career would always demand sacrifices. She was heartbroken. She had envisioned children, a family, a life beyond the newsroom. Instead, she had loneliness. Savannah threw herself into work. It is what high achievers do when personal life implodes. They become their profession. But the emptiness followed her home to her apartment in Manhattan. Then came December 15, 2014. A date that would become seared into Savannah's memory forever. Her father, Charles Guthrie, passed away. He was 70 years old. It was not sudden, but knowing it's coming doesn't soften the blow. Savannah had reconciled with him after years of distance following her parents' divorce. They had rebuilt something fragile but real. The phone call came at 6:47 a.m. She was preparing for Today, her mother's voice on the other, and broken. Final. Savannah did the show that morning. Few knew. She smiled through interviews. She laughed at the appropriate moments. Behind her eyes, devastation. At the funeral in Tucson, Savannah delivered a eulogy that attendees described as simultaneously heartbreaking and beautiful. She spoke of forgiveness, of second chances, of a father who had made mistakes but who had, in the end, tried. "He taught me that it's never too late," she said, voice cracking. "Never too late to say I love you. Never too late to start again." But the losses were not finished with Savannah Guthrie. June 2019, Savannah, 47, was at home with her two children, Vale, 4, and Charles, 2, when she received news that would shake the entire Today Show family. A producer she had worked closely with for years died unexpectedly. Savannah had seen her just days before. They had laughed about summer vacation plans. Suddenly, everything changed. The memorial service was held at NBC Studios. Savannah could barely speak. She had lost colleagues before, but this felt different. This was someone who had been in the trenches with her during the hardest transition years of Today, someone who understood the pressure, the scrutiny, the toll, grief compounded. Then came 2020, the pandemic. The world stopped, but Today could not. Savannah broadcast from her basement in New York, homeschooling her children between interview segments with Dr. Anthony Fauci and CDC Director Rochelle Walensky. What few people know is that during this time, Savannah was also caring for her mother, Nancy, who was dealing with serious health issues. The juggling act became unbearable. She would finish a 4-hour broadcast, help her children with homework, check in with her mother via video call, and then collapse on April 3, 2020. Alone in her home office, Savannah broke down completely. The cameras were off. The microphone was dead. She sobbed. For her father. For her colleague. For the world burning outside. For the childhood she couldn't give her children. For the mother she couldn't physically help. I'm supposed to be strong for everyone, she told a close friend later. But who do I get to be weak for? August 2021 brought another blow. Her beloved dog, Beacon, passed away. It sounds small, but anyone who has loved an animal knows grief is grief. Beacon had been her constant during the darkest times. The dog had been there through the divorce, the death of her father, the pandemic chaos. Savannah posted a tribute on Instagram. You gave us so much love. We will miss you forever. The comments flooded in. Thousands. People don't realize how the small losses can devastate when layered on top of the monumental ones. But perhaps the most heartbreaking struggle has been one Savannah has faced in silence. The physical toll of her profession. November 27, 2019. Savannah's son, Charles, accidentally threw a toy train that struck her in the left eye. What seemed like a minor injury became a medical crisis. Her retina tore. She underwent emergency surgery. She returned to today 6 weeks later, still recovering. But the eye never fully healed. To this day, she experiences vision issues. Every morning, putting on makeup, she's reminded. Then, on June 7, 2023, during a family outing, Savannah tripped and tore her ACL, surgery, months of physical therapy. Broadcasting in pain. The world saw her at the desk, smiling. They didn't see her limping off set. Tears streaming from physical agony. The accumulation of losses, her father, her colleague, her health. The relentless pressure created a woman who understands suffering intimately but refuses to let it define her publicly. At 54. Savannah Guthrie sits in her office at 30 Rockefeller Plaza with a view of Manhattan that once seemed impossible for a girl from Tucson. Her net worth is estimated at approximately $30 million. She owns a home in New York and maintains ties to Arizona. Her marriage to Michael Feldman, whom she married on March 15, 2014, has become her anchor. He is a communications professional and former Democratic political advisor. They met in 2008 at her 37th birthday party. He understood the demands of her career because he lived in a similar world. Their children, Vale, 9 and Charles, 7, are growing up in a stability Savannah never had. She is fiercely protective of their privacy, rarely posting their faces on social media, but the balance is precarious. Savannah wakes at 3:30 a.m. every weekday. She's in the studio by 5 a.m. She finishes around 10 a.m., then rushes to school pickups, homework help, and occasional public appearances. I'm always exhausted, she admitted in a 2023 interview. But I'm also grateful. Every single day, she has channeled her experiences into advocacy. Savannah actively supports journalism education programs, mentoring young reporters. She has also become an advocate for eye safety awareness after her own injury. Her faith, which she rarely discusses publicly, has deepened. She attends St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York when her schedule allows. Prayer has become her therapy. Recent projects include her continued role at Today. But she has also expressed interest in returning to legal journalism, potentially producing documentaries about wrongful convictions. Savannah has found peace not in the absence of struggle, but in the acceptance of it. She still grieves her father. She still thinks about the colleague she lost. She still deals with chronic pain, but she also laughs with her children. She holds her husband's hand. She asks the hard questions of powerful people. She shows up. At 54, Savannah Guthrie stands as proof that success and suffering are not mutually exclusive. From Melbourne, Australia to Tucson, Arizona to 30 Rockefeller Plaza, from a broken engagement to a loving marriage, from the loss of her father to the joy of her children, from a torn retina to still showing up every morning at 3:30 a.m., she is the embodiment of resilience. Her story is not one of perfection. It is one of persistence. The world sees the polished anchor with the $8 million salary and the prime seat at America's breakfast table. But the truth is more complex. The truth is a woman who understands that grief and gratitude can coexist, that you can mourn the past while building the future. That strength is not the absence of breaking, it is the choice to rebuild. If this story touched your heart, leave a tribute below. Share a moment when Savannah Guthrie's professionalism, her warmth, or simply her presence reminded you that showing up, even when you're shattered, is the bravest thing any of us can do. Because in the end, legends are not made by avoiding tragedy. They are forged in the fires of it. This is Legends Untold. Subscribe for more stories of the real people behind the famous faces.